Hello and welcome to our Circle of Success on Salesforce Culture Shift Proactively Driving Innovation. I am Haley Coxon, our VP of Marketing here at Proudly, and I am excited to be joined by Tara and Cullen from SPS Commerce. Let you guys do an introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and how you've come to know Proudly?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So I'm Tara Jordahl. I'm the CPQ manager at SPS Commerce. I've been there for 3 years since their initial purchase of Salesforce CPQ. Prior to that, I did work with Big Machines as the CPQ admin at another company. So I've been doing the CPQ thing now for about 6 years. Was first introduced to Proudly during our initial implementation in 2017 via our implementation partner, Code Zero. So.
Great. And Cullen?
Yeah, I'm Cullen Combs, business systems admin. Come from a Salesforce background in Salesforce consulting. So I'm about a year into my CPQ journey, but I'm part of a larger CPQ team at SPS, and I handle a lot of the development in sandboxes as well as the deployment of that development. So that's where probably is most relevant to my job, and been using the tool for about 8 months or 9 months of that time. So it's been a great experience so far.
Awesome. And we'll get into more of the team structure and how you guys work collaboratively across SPS Commerce. We also have Andy, one of our customer success managers. Would you like to say hi?
Hey everyone, Andy Slania. I've been working for Proudly for about a year, helping our customers unveil new use cases for using our product. As well, I'm a former Salesforce admin and IT manager.
And you're SPS Commerce's dedicated customer success manager, so you've been working with them quite a lot.
Yep.
All right. Before we get into it, a little housekeeping. Attendees are on mute. We do encourage you to participate, ask questions either by raising your hand with the little raise your hand icon, or asking questions in the question box, and we'll answer those towards the end. If you prefer to, ask directly, we can unmute you one by one and let that happen as well. Other takeaways for today that we hope we show throughout this session. Release cycles and the challenges of managing releases don't have to dictate how you can work. You can take back control of those, and having the right tools will help you work smarter, not harder, to be more productive. All right, let's jump in. So I'll throw it to the SPS team. You're part of this CPQ team, as Cullen mentioned, but there's a much broader strategy and team supporting Salesforce and all of the users. Can you give us a quick overview of kind of how you structure and maintain Salesforce overall?
Absolutely. I think we have a somewhat unique structure to our Salesforce admin environment. We span 3 different primary areas of the business, from sales, technology, and into customer success. And for the most part, each of those particular teams owns supporting users and configuration that are a bit siloed. So in our world, we support the sales organization. We have a partner team under the sales operations umbrella, the sales automation team. And together we support all of SPS's sales users, the Sales Cloud. And for the most part, we manage declarative changes, although we do write some code, but all code promotion is done to production through the corporate systems team, which sits in the technology space, and they are the primary support for our non-sales users and Service Cloud. In the customer success organization, we have a branch of Salesforce admins that do light configuration. They have sandbox access, and they promote all of their development through that corporate systems team as well. So there's a little bit of a funnel through technology, but we all, for the most part, manage ourselves and our specific users. In terms of our broader strategy, I think organizationally, we really try to follow Salesforce best practices and are always trying to stay ahead of the advancements and new features. That being said, we work for a very innovative and driven organization, and that means that we do actually have a lot of custom development in our org as well.
Mm-hmm. So Tara, maybe you want to take this one. What led you to look for a solution like Proudly? What challenges were you having?
Yeah, great question. So when I joined in 2017, I was the first and only CPQ admin at SPS Commerce.
Always a fun position to be in.
They introduced me to their 2,000 record product suite, their 400-person sales team with multiple processes across, just to set the picture a little bit. So we did have a partner when we first implemented, and we used Proudly, via our partner, for those initial configuration deployments. And at that time, it seemed very valuable. But we thought that we would end up in sort of a set it and forget it. Well, that was the heavy lifting, right? And now we're done. And so easygoing, I can take care of that. Well, we learned very quickly that that wasn't going to be the case. And we first started by growing the team. So between 2017 and 2018, grew from just me to me plus 2. And now in total, I have 4 direct reports. In some more administrative, some more our internal customer support. But it's not practical to continue to add human labor. We needed to work smarter, and based on the rate of product change and new requirements, and really trying to keep up and continue to align and develop CPQ to support the organization. We were just doing a lot of work, and we had use cases, moving data. We work in 3 different sandboxes. So we develop in a partial, which is our equivalent of our dev org, move through a full sandbox and then into production. So if you can imagine moving, products, price rules, product rules, etc., 3 times manually, it was really time consuming and prone to error. And so that's around the time where we said, okay, there's got to be something better. We remembered Proudly and our experience with that, and so sought to add that to our toolbox. And since then, we really have seen significant reduction in hours and an increase in our ability to, as I mentioned, it's a very driven and innovative organization. We make changes quickly, and we're able to do things much faster than we would have or were doing previously in a manual process.
Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people new to CPQ do go into it with that set it and forget it. If they understand there's going to be this big effort up front, get all of our products in, and then maintenance should be fairly simple and easy. And maybe we'll update price books once a year when we do an annual increase or something. But that's definitely not the case at SPS Commerce. Your product team is driving a lot of innovation, and so you're having a lot more maintenance. Can you share with the audience kind of what the day-to-day maintenance entails?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we spend a majority of our time in 3 different categories of work. And one is new configuration requests. And that includes things like new products, promotions, or actually like sale integrity validation type efforts to make sure the right products are getting sold at the right time. So that's one bucket. The second bucket is we are still working towards full adoption of the CPQ offerings. We are in flight with a pilot to use the contracts, subscriptions, and assets in a contracting model. To date, we just use CPQ as our quoting and quote document generation. So we're adding that component and rolling that out with the organization. And then finally, because we have the bandwidth, partially fueled by the use of Proudly, we can actually spend some time doing review of our current code and configuration and look for ways to consolidate and improve on what we've previously developed.
Awesome. It does look like we have an audience question from Adam. Adam, I'm going to unmute you here and let you ask your question. So you're unmuted from our end. I think you might have to unmute your microphone on your end. If you're still out there, Adam. All right. We will try that again later. Switch you back. Okay. So obviously your team is very dedicated to CPQ, but the broader Salesforce strategy is, comprehensive across sales and services and customer support organizations. What goals do you have for your team and the broader team managing and maintaining Salesforce?
Yeah, well, Colin, I think will speak to this in a little bit. Our team, we are very specifically focused on CPQ, but we love the tool and have seen so much value that we are moving into sort of a champion role, and we've been proactively engaging those other teams and advocating for ways that they can use the tool for their day-to-day work as well.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the before and after states, because you've already hit on you have more bandwidth, you're able to be more proactive, take on that kind of best practice advisory role. So Colin, I think you're the one that's the resident in-house Proudly expert doing a lot of these deployments and managing these releases. Can you share kind of what was your release cycle and frequency like pre-Proudly and now what it's like?
Yeah, so previously it was, not only was it reactionary from a CPQ standpoint, but from the general Salesforce organization within SPS, there was a lot of sort of, hey, this update's coming, we're gonna have to refresh our sandbox. Hope that doesn't impede your work too much. That sort of, we get that message, and then we need to scramble to put together a library of CSV files with all of the different orders of operations for how you manage relationships and IDs. And it would take a ton of upfront work, and this for refresh cycles. It would take a lot of upfront work to get ready for the refresh, and then it would take the same, if not more, work after the refresh to get everything back to a point where we could use our partial org. Where again, that's what we use for most of our up and coming features and enhancements. So it's important that we have a stable, productive partial org. So that would, an almost 2-week process when you go before and after. Now we can get rid of that library of CSV files. We have our mapping that we can run an overnight load, get the success results in the morning, have confidence in the data, and get back to building, if not the next day, 2 days later. So that level of, and Tara, I think, touched on it well, when you're reactive, you tend to look back and say, how did we get here? How do we make, how do we let this technical debt pile up? Why did we build this again? Because you don't really have that time to think. But now that we have our refresh cycles reduced, we're able to reassess, build more dynamically, fix things that we maybe didn't like how we did it initially because we were just being reactive, and we have a more intentional product. So really a big fan of our new shortened release cycles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's taking that long just to kind of advance that release from lower level orgs up into production, the amount of work you're not like actively doing and the value you can deliver is just like, it's pretty transformational. So that's very exciting. How can you speak a little bit to how this has kind of changed the perspective and the culture of your team, the reputation that you have within your organization too?
Yeah, I think most importantly, especially lately from my perspective, and I'm sure Tara will have something to share here as well, we are less and less being a limiting force in change. you know, we rarely have people waiting on us. Often we're waiting to get the signal to go. We have our work built, we have our data sets ready for deploy, and we're just waiting for the communication to go out or someone to greenlight us, rather than saying, you know, that sounds great, we'll talk to you in Q4 when we have time. You know, and that level of interaction between groups in the company is just such a much more positive brand for the CPQ team.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Tara, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would just add that where we are able to innovate and add value beyond what is requested of us has been really impactful, and especially this year, you know, we have identified areas that we can leverage CPQ and deliver new automated solutions to other teams in sales operations and in the sales organization. So we're not only responding, but getting to lead, and that has resulted in us taking on a consultative role in the organization. The product managers, people reach out and ask us, hey, we have an idea. How should we think about this? What do we need to do to accomplish this? And so that additional time for us to develop has really leaps and bounds changed our position in the organization to not just being a team of doers, but a team that helps you get things done, that, you know, can guide, direct, and really influence how we use our products and quoting tool.
Mm-hmm. And that's really fantastic, especially given how frequently your product team is introducing new products, new promotions, because I know we've talked about that in the past, that there's quite a lot of volume. And like, as a marketer, I know if I want to run a promotion, it's pretty time sensitive. So having to wait and to plan that far out is actually quite difficult, because you don't know, you know, what the market's going to look like at that point. You know, next quarter might be a completely different game. Especially this year, as we've all been learning and seeing. So it's really cool that you guys are taking on this role as a kind of a strategic advisor within your company and within those broader teams to help them also be more effective in thinking about new, cool, innovative solutions in the right way. We do have a quick little poll I'm going to put up while we ask our next question and talk about more qualitative results. So I'd like to know from the audience out there, how would you categorize your current Salesforce culture? Are you in this reactive state that we heard SPS was at the beginning, where you're just kind of this team of doers and taking requests? Are you more proactive, helping guide the business and the strategy, or are you somewhere in between? So while we have that up, I know you guys have had some pretty great results from efficiency and accuracy and effectiveness, and if there's anything qualitative or quantitative that you could share with kind of your experience with Bradley, that would be great.
Tara, I've got an example. Would you like me to go?
Do you have something? I don't know why that's going to be real quick. Yes, shoot.
No, I have a very, personally positive change that came from probably when in my early part of my career with SPS, I had deployed my first bundle through to production, and it was a fairly complex bundle, probably 20 to 30 product options within that bundle. And there were some nuances at that time between what was in our sandbox and what was in production. And I missed a configuration, and I had to go back and reach out to 20 to 30 reps and explain why either their already closed sale was wrong or how they're going to have to remake their current sale. And it was just such an uncomfortable introduction to manual error in a production cycle, in a deployment cycle. And that really is what kicked me into gear to start reading documentation and get a success engagement with Broadly to get the tool up and running. And now just the confidence and comfort I feel after a deployment just knowing that I've got my success report, I've got my backlog of all the different deployments where it came out, exactly the way it was supposed to be. I just feel better after deployments. It's a very noticeable change.
And no one wants to be in the position where you have to go back to customers and say, sorry, we sold you something we can't actually deliver. That is not a good place to be in, and that does not build that trust with your sales team for sure. So it's good we can help prevent those types of issues going forward. Looks like from the poll, pretty much everybody is somewhere in between. So good news is you're working towards being more proactive and strategic, and hopefully today we'll be sharing some ways you can get there. Tara, did you have anything to add on results, impact, or did Colin kind of cover it all?
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a good segue to what we'll be talking about next. As a people manager, and especially in this time, there's a lot of scrutiny around labor and wanting to be more efficient. And we have been able to we were able to quantify the reduction in hours, a significant reduction in hours on the team having Prodly, and increase the amount of output. So efficiency is huge at SPS, and Prodly has allowed us to quantify and show exactly how productive this team can be with the right technology. And we've even used that similar model of time saving and efficiency to obtain the funding for additional features like the testing, ops testing that we're going to talk about.
Which we are going to talk about next, because as your teams become more productive and kind of widened the throughput of what you can produce, testing is a big part, especially given how complex your org is. And so it's kind of rolled that bottleneck or the capacity constraint further down into your QA team. So Colin, I know you've been kind of beta testing our regression testing product AppOps test as we've rolled it out to see how it can work for your team. What's your experience and how has that been working for you?
Yeah, I'm really optimistic. Pretty new into the beta program so far. I'm putting together a testing suite. I'm checking the results and making sure everything's coming out as expected. But as Tara mentioned, we have two members of our team especially that are kind of in the sales support and testing QA role, and they're very industrious employees. They're not people that when we save them time, they'll just sit there and twiddle their thumbs. And I'm thinking recently when they had extra time, they've started a proactive rep education program. They've serviced a payment plan project for our contract admins, some of those operational players that maybe don't get all the attention in the org. So when they have time, we are able to create really cool things. But unfortunately, we have a product catalog that is incredibly complex. We're supporting legacy pricing, new pricing, in the middle pricing. We've got so many things in flight, and we have so many price rules to support this complex org that regression testing is a huge part of their day. 60 to 80% of sprints probably spent doing confirmation for a no unexpected loss of functionality, just running through our basic quote scenarios, making sure we haven't crossed any wires. So the potential for this product to lift that off their shoulders and just basically have a run of a testing suite, even a scheduled run where you can just say, hey, let's get that peace of mind and run our testing suite. That's really exciting, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the time they gain once we have that in full flight.
Yeah, because if 60 to 80% of their time is just, clicking quotes, as you roll out contract amendments and those other components that you're considering, it's even going to add more like manual testing, like just eyeballs on, does this work the way it's supposed to, or did something change that inadvertently? messed with this. And it's that also, like, you schedule these, you can run them whenever you want. And it's that kind of same thing where you hit the deployment button and you go home and in the morning it's going to be done, so that they can really more quickly pinpoint, like, okay, my test suite ran, I have one issue, I know exactly where to look, I know exactly what's changed, and kind of that head start into fixing those errors is really huge.
Yeah, and today's a big day for Proudly too, because we now have the capability for scheduling your test runs and performing contract amendment and renewal functionality. So
yes, we had a big release this morning. So if you, for all the existing customers out on the line, if you were considering tests before, it's even better. Release also got a lot of great feature enhancements as well. So last thing before we turn it over for audience questions, the cross-team collaboration and that proactive nature and culture within your team is starting to spread throughout the rest of the Salesforce teams. And I think you've identified some pretty cool use cases that, while it's not necessarily your direct responsibility, that can make the overall, Salesforce team more effective. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're working with those teams and what they're thinking about?
Yeah, so as Tara mentioned, we have a bit of a fractured Salesforce team in that we're all in our different groups supporting our constituents, but we do come together as a cohesive admin group bi-weekly to kind of talk about what we have in flight and what's going on in our worlds. And we took the opportunity to really champion Proudly, explain how we've been using it, and just kind of put that seed in their head to say, if you think that you have reference data or record data or use cases that might really help you, why don't you reach out? And before that meeting was over, I had some messages saying, well, hey, do you think this could help us with the territory model? Do you think this could help us seed our dev sandboxes with useful data? So we've had some really great conversations within our collaborative Salesforce team, and we're helping our corporate systems team seed their dev sandboxes with really quality data, so that when they're testing new third-party apps, new development, enhancements, they're not just testing on account ABC with skeleton data, they're testing on real production data with all of the nuances, with all of the intricacies, so they can identify things that maybe wouldn't be spotted if you're just using the standard account opportunity sales objects or whatever it might be. Same with customer success. We're pushing Service Cloud data. We saw that Proudly published sort of a starter Service Cloud template to help you seed dev sandboxes. So we're using that. So when customer success needs to do case routing enhancements, or just testing things that aren't ready for full sandbox or production, they have good data once again to work with. And then we're really excited about the potential with the territory model, because our sales ops team works on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day to make sure that the cutover is smooth. They have no ability to sort of test run. So we reached out to Andy, and he put together this great starting place for our territory model data set. And we're in the works of experimenting how we might make that year end smoother and less stressful for that sales ops team. If we can do trial runs into scratch orgs, trial runs into tests, just to make sure it happens, and then night of make the big cutover and know that you have your reporting capabilities, your testing, you've seen it work. So really excited to see how those instances work out.
Mm-hmm. And that's something we find a lot, is a lot of the work that Proudly helps automate is work that is typically happening on nights, on weekends, over holidays, when everybody else at your company gets to have their, free time, home time, non-work time, because you don't want to be making these changes while people are actively in the system. And so, yeah, it's great from just a admin happiness factor as well. Oops, went the wrong way. So we do have questions. But quick plug, Cullen alluded to it, we have these wonderful success programs where you can engage a CSM like Andy to help you build out a data set or explore, we think this is possible, but we need a little help. If free and available for all of our customers through our success portal. And then if you're not yet a Proudly user customer, we'd be happy to get you on for a personalized demo, explore a little bit more about how this can help you. We do have a couple of audience questions. The first one is, for Salesforce full and partial sandboxes, the internal IDs get preserved for the CPQ records. Do you feel it would be helpful if there was a way for this internal IDs to be preserved during the refresh cycles? Andy, it's fairly technical, so I'm going to throw it to you. That is, really the value of our release product is we do maintain those relationships. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about how that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when you refresh a full or partial copy sandbox, right, especially with the full, all of your CPQ records, the record IDs are going to be reproduced into your full copy sandbox. With a partial, it's a portion of the data. And obviously with the developer sandbox, there's no data that comes through. So where Proudly can help you out is if you're performing a seed of your CPQ data, obviously the record IDs are going to be different between your production org and new records going into your partial or any record going into your developer sandbox. So Proudly, as part of that seed, will maintain the integrity of the records between the record in your source and the record in your destination. So as you adjust those records in your lower level sandboxes and move them up the landscape, we're going to be able to identify and perform updates to those records that you want to update.
Great, and Cullen kind of alluded to this early on, those like, okay, we're gonna do a sandbox refresh. I gotta download all of my CSV files, make sure they're all mapped properly so I can, reestablish what I had been working on after the refresh happens. So with Proudly, all of that goes away. It's, click of a button, let it run. We move all of those relational data sets, the entire schema automatically. We preserve those relationships, we prevent duplicates. So it's a lot easier. Last question for Tara before we got to wrap up. How do you go about quantifying those time savings and efficiencies in a way that's meaningful for leadership? So we think, speak to, if you can, how do you build a business case? How do you advocate for these tools and technology to help your team be more effective?
Yeah, so for the test, what I did, I looked at my employees' time and I said, we work in 2-week sprints, modified agile, and they were assigned 60 to 80% of their points to do testing. And so, Cullen and I talked about it, thought about it, and said, okay, well, what if we could say that regression testing could take half of that even, right? You still have to have users do some level of more unique testing scenarios, but that first pass. So I looked at the hours that my team was spending. I validated the amount of time that I thought that they were doing work that would be replaced or reduced by the purchase of the tool. And then as a manager with access to their wages, I calculated how many dollars a week, a month, a year we are paying my team to do something that we could replace with this tool. And it was, in our case, it was a very easy math equation. It was a huge savings to add the tool. So and that's what I've done in the past. I don't know if you do, Haley or Andy, if you can say that you do this today, but when I first was working with the group around the purchase of Proudly, I think I was given a calculator too that helped quantify some, like there was a tool that your team had provided that was really helpful, that looked at kind of what are some of the key areas that Proudly supports and the typical amount of hours that a team spends. So I think it's really all in that, identifying the amount of hours that you think that you're spending and then computing that cost.
Yeah.
Comparing it.
And there are hard costs at the end of the day for doing these processes that can be easily automated manually. And our teams are very happy to work with you to build those business cases and help kind of justify the cost of the tool. The other side of the equation too is, what are you not able to get to today because you're doing manual processes? So those cool programs, rep training, that's something that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have extra time. And the kind of opportunity cost of not getting to those things or having to delay them can add up quite significantly too. All right, we are over time, so I'm going to call it. Thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you, Tara and Cullen, for sharing your story and your journey with Proudly. It's been a wonderful session. So we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Ron.
Thank you.